Best assessment we have today is that, in fact, this was not a pre-planned, premeditated attack. That what happened initially was that it was a spontaneous reaction to what had just transpired in Cairo as a consequence of the video. Our current assessment is that what happened in Benghazi was, in fact, initially a spontaneous reaction to what had just transpired hours before in Cairo, almost a copycat of the demonstrations against our facility in Cairo, which were prompted, of course, by the video. What our assessment is, as of the present, is in fact what it began spontaneously in Benghazi as a reaction to what had transpired some hours earlier in Cairo.
Now, that was Susan Rice appearing on the Sunday talk shows after the September 11th attack on our consulate complex in Benghazi, Libya. Well, it wasn't spontaneous, wasn't related to a YouTube video. This was the 12th that we know of edition of their talking points. The first one had it right, and then it evolved into that lie. How big a scandal is this?
Well, they say truth leaves on horseback and returns on foot. And it's damaging. It's damaging. I haven't heard a single person who had knowledge of the event who described it that way.
Nobody?
Nobody. Nobody thought it was a demonstration, that I have heard anyway, and nobody thought that it was related to the YouTube video.
Yeah. Well, let me go to the shot of the president and Joe Biden on the campaign trail, because they were claiming al-Qaeda is no longer a threat. Now, we've got to see this whole issue, I think, through the prism of time and the election that was upcoming and forthcoming. Let's listen to this and see if you think this had an impact on the lies they told.
Most of al-Qaeda's top lieutenants have been defeated.
I said that I'd go after bin Laden if we had a clear shot at him, and I did.
The goal that I set to defeat al-Qaeda and deny it a chance to rebuild is now within our reach. Thanks to Air Force personnel who did their part, Osama bin Laden is no longer a threat to our country. We've put al-Qaeda on the path to defeat.
Osama bin Laden is dead and General Motors is alive.
Al-Qaeda's on the path to defeat, and Osama bin Laden is dead. Al-Qaeda's on the path to defeat, and Osama bin Laden is dead.
We've decimated al-Qaeda Central. We have eliminated Osama bin Laden. That was our purpose.
So 2 months before the election, that narrative that they were selling turned out not to be true. Do you think that is the reason why those talking points, the CIA had it right from day one, everybody on the ground had it right? Do you think they purposely lied to the American people to get reelected?
You know, I can't know the answer to that. What I do know is that anyone dealing with that problem of al-Qaeda knows that we have killed leaders in al-Qaeda, and they are replaced within a matter of a month. There's a new one. And you may go through 3 leaders of al-Qaeda in one part of Iraq or one part of Afghanistan, and they'll be replaced, and that's what's happened. And that contention that it's decimated has to be understood to be not correct.
All right, let's walk through this, though, slowly, because we know that the CIA warned that there might be an attack on the 9/11 anniversary. And I would think, as Defense Secretary, you would think that's a logical conclusion.
Indeed.
There were specific requests for security denied before the attack. During the attack, we now know from the hearings there were 2 specific stand-down orders, people that were willing to go in and help those people that were under fire. Then the talking points were right, and it evolved into a big lie. Now, without drawing conclusions, what should we see in this?
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing you didn't mention is the fact that the Brits pulled out because of the threats.
That's correct.
And these people on the ground in Benghazi requested additional security, and it wasn't provided. The first responsibility is, if you are going to put people in place, you provide security for them, and if not, you remove them. You don't have to keep them there. You can do something else like the Brits did. But I think the narrative that evolved, what happened on the ground didn't fit the narrative, and the narrative overcame the facts. It sounded.
Why
to
do
me.
I think if this was you and George W. Bush, that leading into an election, there would have been a lot different coverage?
Well, I'm inclined to agree with you, but in fact, I do agree with you. It is the truth. That's the way it works in our country,
But the president was told about 4 in the afternoon, and from what we've heard from Leon Panetta and Secretary Clinton, he wasn't curious. He didn't ask or request an update. Our consulate is under attack. Our ambassador is under fire. And apparently went to bed, got up the next morning, and went campaigning.
He did. I think he went to Las Vegas or someplace like that.
Yeah.
And it is a shame. We've lost 4 public servants, fine people, and but what's really troubling beyond that is the fact that this pretense that it was something other than what it was. If we're not willing to face up and say there are people in the world that are out to kill innocent men, women, and children, and to end the concept of a nation state, and to impose a caliphate, I don't know how you can begin to compete against it if you're not willing to identify it. If you're calling it workplace violence, what takes place at Fort Hood.
Often the president, he blames kiosks and ATM machines and tsunamis and earthquakes and Fox News and talk radio.
And Bush.
And, well, when all else fails, you blame Bush.
Exactly.
What do you think of him? He's analyzed your administration, or the Bush administration, thoroughly, blames you all the time. What do you think of his administration?
What I think is this. I think that one of the most dangerous things our country can do is to indicate that we're weak and in decline. And we are managing our economy, kind of modeling it after Europe, a failed model, where signals going out that anyone looking at the United States knows you cannot continue to incur these deficits and the debts that we're piling up. The sequester says we're not going to increase the Defense Department. We're going to cut tens of, close to $1 trillion out of the next 10 years out of the defense budget. What is that signal to the world? It's that America's not going to be playing the role it can play. It's not going to be the model it has been. It's not going to be able to contribute to a more peaceful and stable world. And we create a vacuum. And what fills that vacuum? What fills that vacuum when the United States withdraws and goes into decline is people with values totally different from ours.
It's well said. All right, when we come back, you see this beautiful audience?
It
right
is
there?
fantastic.
Yeah, okay. When we come back, they take over the show. More with our panel, Donald Rumsfeld. After the break, as Hannity continues.